Hello, I'm Bob Hurst, archaeologist, historian, businessman in downtown Panama City for many, many years. I'm also author of The Spanish Road, a book about Florida's old Spanish Trail. Today our presentation is about time. Yes, it's about time that a famous clock that graced the streets of Panama City is finally recognized again. But before we talk about the clock, let's talk about the time period. 1926, well, that was during the Roaring Twenties. That was an exciting time. That was the time of bootlegging, prohibition, gangsters, Al Capone, Houdini, the Great Gatsby, and the Charleston. Here in Panama City, it was a great building period. I've counted at least 26 building projects that were taking place in that year. That was unprecedented in those early days of Panama City history. Such well-remembered buildings as the Cove Hotel, the Dixie Sherman Hotel, and places of education such as Bay High School and Bob Jones College. All those were started in 1926. The area was starting to develop around 4th and Harrison as well. The old downtown was about to give way to Uptown. Uptown was at the corner of 4th and Harrison, and it was named in 1923 4 Points. There were 7 building projects right there at that intersection, and one of them is, of course, City Hall, which is today the Center for the Arts. Well, if we go back to downtown Panama City, which was at the corner of Beach Drive and Harrison, there was First National Bank. In that year, 1926, they erected a McClintock exterior bracket clock on their building. This clock made the Westminster chimes every quarter of an hour. And the cashier of the bank said this about time: "We hope that the chimes will mean something to all our people, that they will have a message for the youngster on his way to school, a thought for the businessmen who hustle through the day, a solace for the old, an inspiration for all. Every day of the week, the chimes will be sounding their message, the note of warning spoken in time, the chime of rejoicing, the lament in sorrow. This chime will be all those things to each and every one, for it is going to belong not to us alone, but to the men and women and children of our community." I would like to think that the clock really became the icon, the landmark of downtown Panama City, such as the Big Ben in London that became the icon of that city. Well, moving on in history, First National Bank went belly up during the Great Depression that followed the Roaring Twenties, and the commercial bank took its place, and in 1957 they decided to move up to 7th and Harrison. Well, the clock that had stood there on the building went with commercial bank, and it was placed on a column there in front of 7th and Harrison. So missed was the clock down here at Beach Drive and Harrison that the later occupants of that building, Black Insurance, put almost an identical clock on that building, and it stood there for quite a while until In 2003, that clock was also moved as Black Insurance moved out of the building. And it was placed into storage. That was the second clock. Now, the first clock was being placed there at the corner of 7th and Harrison, soon fell into disrepair. And the Historical Society approached Sun Bank, which was the successors of Commercial Bank, and asked them if we could have the clock. Well, the Sun Bank declined that, but they did compromise and say, well, let's fix up the clock and let's have a dedication, a rededication really, of the clock. And so this occurred in 2003, and I was privileged to speak at that dedication and told the history of the clock up to that period. Well, all of us know what happened 15 years later. Hurricane Michael devastated the area. Downtown Panama City was not spared, and the clock was not spared. It was mauled. And the Sun Bank itself was in such bad condition that they hired a demolition crew to come in and demolish the building and the clock. Well, Kevin Wattenberger, realtor, was around that site about the time this was to happen, and he saw what was going on, and he yelled at the crew to stop. You can't do that. That's historic. And so as a result, they stopped the demolition, and Wattenberger approached Becky Saunders, the curator of the museum. She in turn contacted me, vice president of the Historical Society, and between Wattenberger, Becky, and myself, we persuaded Sun Bank to give us the clock. Well, that's when Bill Register stepped in, and he had a crew that could dismantle the clock, and he also hired Deep South cranes to come in and remove the clock. It was brought down here to the museum, 800 pounds of it, and through the engineering skills of one of our members, Robert Saunders, he raised that clock vertically and displayed it here at the museum. Rebecca Saunders and Anita Thomas were instrumental in doing a very nice display in the museum. But that clock didn't belong really in the museum. It belonged out on the streets. Its chimes needed to work again, and it was certainly badly mauled and needed a lot of repair, an expensive repair, I might add. Well, thanks to the efforts of the Society's president, Tim Fontaine, and former president, Dr. Glenda Walters, we persuaded the city to acquire the clock and get it repaired and to place it out for public viewing. This timepiece has been restored. Once again, it will dominate the downtown, and it will be put at the intersection of 4th and Harrison. 4 points, and it will be, the name will be rejuvenated in 4 Points Plaza. And it's about time that this took place. In honor of the clock being repaired, the Historical Society has made a new ornament on the clock, and we will be selling these at $20 for a while, and then the price is going to $25. So get your early bird special, and we will have those available here at the museum. So thanks to the city, to members of the public, to the Historical Society for making this a reality. It's about time.